Good morning. We welcome you all again this morning to our last workshop for this camp meeting series. To those of you who are joining us today, you are most welcome. And to those of you who have been joining us throughout the week, you are welcome as well. As you know, our theme for this camp meeting, making disciples, building communities. We have been blessed with various topics in this platform since Monday. On Monday, we looked at grief, loss, and bereavement. On Tuesday, we had a fresh perspective on conflict. On Wednesday, we had mental health and ethnic minorities. Yesterday, we were blessed with a workshop in intergenerational trauma. Our last presentation this morning in balancing your emotions is entitled Through It All, Resilience. And it's going to be presented to us by Edith Samambwa. Edith Samambwa is an occupational therapist in the mental health sector, a coach, a speaker, and an entrepreneur. She has been volunteering with CCS since 2017. She specializes in men's mental health and suicide prevention. So now we're going to ask Ross to open for us in prayer.
Eternal God and our Father, we just lift your name high and thank you for being our God and for keeping us through the night and allowing us to see another day that we have never seen before. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for the time you have given us that we can come together to listen and to hear from you about resilience and what you have taken us through this past year or more. Dear Jesus, we pray that because your word says you are our refuge and our strength and a very present help in our time of trouble, we are surrendering ourselves to you because you have taken us through many storms. And Lord, we know we couldn't have made it unless you were carrying us through. So I pray that you would be with Edith this morning, that you would use her as the gift you have given her to share what is on our heart, and that those who are listening, they may also be encouraged and know that through the storms of life, you're always there, carrying us through it. So Father, for those who will be listening in, I pray that you would strengthen them and help them to be encouraged and know that they're not on their own as they struggle, but that you are there with them. So strengthen them and take them through this day. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning and happy Friday. We're so thankful and so blessed to have made it to yet another Friday, and it's been an awesome week. We have been enjoying the camp meeting, although it has been virtual. It has been such an amazing time to connect and to be revived. I personally have found myself challenged and also inspired, and I found my faith reignited. I was listening to one of the messages on Tuesday about involvement, and I made a dedication. I said, God, I commit to be more involved in my community. I commit to be more involved in helping others, in supporting others, and being part of the body of Christ and doing more actively and not just behind the shadows. Not just, I want to do more for you. So I pray that even as we do today's presentation, as you hear today's presentation, that this would be inspiration for you. I know we've heard how God can work for us in all the difficult life situations that we've had. We know that we may have experienced trauma, and yesterday we learned that what we can do if we have found ourselves in that position where we have experienced trauma. And in fact, many of us have probably experienced trauma in this lifetime, because as someone said, pain is inevitable. Pain is definitely inevitable. We will all experience it. And so as we have learned about bereavement on Monday, we learned about how to cope with loss and bereavement. We learned about conflict. We learned about intergenerational trauma, and we learned about mental health. I know that all of us found something that we could say, yes, I will do. This is for me. This is for me. And this is what I'm going to do. And I am going to share with you how we can make it, putting it all together. I thought, how can I put all this together? I have the honor of doing the end of the presentations, the last of the presentations, but it's also a burden, in that there's so much that we have learned, and there's so much that we want you to go away with and feel empowered to live your lives. And as I thought about this topic that we have, resilience, how we can make it, how we made it, and how we can make it, how we made it through that year. We would like to forget it, wouldn't we? Yes, it started off amazing. And if we were to read Charles Dickens' poem, you know, that famous poem, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, we would leave out all the worst. When January 2020 started, we would have left out those bits that we don't like. And we would have read it like this: it was the best of time. It was the age of wisdom. It was the epoch of belief. It was the season of light. It was the spring of hope. That's all we would have read about 2020, until 2020 happened. And things shifted and things happened. And we found out that, oh, unfortunately, 2020 was not going to be that perfect year because of the double 20s that we had seen. It would not be that year of double vision. It would not be the most amazing decade. In fact, 2020 maybe was canceled, or maybe actually we would wish that 2020 was canceled. And that not only was 2020 a year of unpleasant surprises, a year of despair, a year of knocks that we did not anticipate, but many things were canceled. Jobs were canceled. Events were canceled. Trips around the world were canceled. I love to go on holiday. All my holidays were canceled. That we were stuck in that year with very few options of where to go, what to do, and how we were going to make this year the year of wisdom and the year of light. As somebody said, this was what someone said in humor. So far, 2020 is looking both ways: before crossing the street, then getting hit by an airplane. Yes, the surprises that we did not see, the unfortunate, unpleasant surprise that 2020 was, that we did not see. And it changed our lives. It changed everything. We suddenly found ourselves working from home. And for those of us that always like to work from home, well, it didn't feel so good. When you had the children with you all the time, when you had the demands of work, and you're trying to balance that with what the children need and with their education, it didn't feel so good suddenly to be home all the time. Because there are times when we dream about, oh, I wish I could go home. You know, you're at work and you're thinking about the kids, you're thinking about what you could go and do with them. Now you have that opportunity for 20, 30 days in a row. You're working that whole month, and you're working with the children alongside you, and it was not so good. And for some of us, like I said earlier, our travel plans, so I had plans to go places. Some of you may have wanted to see, that's the Sydney Opera, and you look at it now, all you had was plates and dishes, and you spent your holiday in that space. I saw a video the other day of somebody who was pretending that they were on holiday, and what they were doing was watching the washing machine go around, and it looked like, you know, the windows where when you're on a plane and you can see outside. So they were looking inside the washing machine window, and he had his iPad, and in the iPad he could hear the captain saying, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our flight. And then he's got his wine glass there, but as the picture pulls out, you can see that he's sitting on his floor and he has his iPad and he's dreamily looking at this and thinking, this is what I would rather be doing. But here I am doing dishes. Here I am in front of this washing machine. And even when we look at 2021, it looks like even some of our travel plans this year will be canceled and things are going to change. But even more seriously, traveling is not an essential. More seriously, it's the connections that we needed to have. The times when we were alone, when we spent time in our homes, unable to go out, unable to meet with our friends, unable to hug. You know, we were allowed to hug last week. And it's crazy that we're given permission to hug, right? So a friend came to visit me on Wednesday and we didn't hug because we forgot. I had to say to her, yes, we can. Yes, we can hug all over again, because for a whole year, you were not allowed to shake hands. At some point, all we wore were gloves. And so now suddenly we can hug, but we've forgotten what it feels like. And children had forgotten what it felt like to be with their friends and to be in the company of their friends. Because even in schools, as you can see that picture in China, the children had to be put in a bubble of their own, playing, as you can see that little girl playing sorrowfully by herself in school, because we dare not break that barrier. And that loneliness, that time that we spent alone was guaranteed, or should have been guaranteed, because that's what the enemy thinks, that it was guaranteed to break you, to make you anxious, to make you depressed, to have you fearful, to have you worried and panicked. And we saw that at the beginning. We saw people panicking. We saw the crisis of the toilet paper, right? I was sick when that happened. I had nobody to go do that rush for me. I had no one to go storm the supermarket and bring me paracetamol. I remember when it happened, and I was telling my friend, and Noktula was doing my shopping and so on. She would drop things for me. And I said, Noktula, you know, I need toilet paper. Thankfully, before this in February, I bought like a batch of 24 toilet, you know, the big one. I had those for a while. And yet the panic, the anxiety that people had, that they would run out of food, this was what was meant to happen. This is what was meant to happen, that we're supposed to have this pain. This is the enemy's plan, that we're supposed to have this pain, that this thing here, this virus, this bug that we cannot even see, that we cannot even touch, that it's meant to create chaos in not just the world, but in our personal world, that it's meant to break us, that it is meant to destroy who we are, to cause us to feel psychological pain, not just physical pain, because the pain, yes, it was a lot. I had headaches, I suffered a lot, but it's meant to make us not, that is what the enemy wanted. All these things that you see on here, the frustration, the depression, the crisis, the restlessness, the panic, the turmoil, being scared, being terrified of what the future has in store, worried about your family. You haven't seen them for years, worried that you cannot go and see them in the hospital, not being able to fly home for funerals. It was meant to make you depressed. You're meant to become afraid of people and have phobias about seeing people not wearing masks. When you go into the supermarket, you stay away from your friends. You cannot touch, you cannot hold. This is what's meant to happen according to the enemy's playbook. This is what is meant to happen. But as we talk about what God wants, what God is doing in us, that we realize that in spite of all this, in spite of what is happening, that actually we can bounce from those things, that we can recover from them, and not just recover from them, but become strong from them. That we can grow, that even though things may be going wrong, that we will not go wrong with them. As somebody said, that things may go wrong, but don't go wrong with them. Don't go with them. That this is what, in fact, will happen, is that it's when all these things are happening, we can be resilient and we can bounce back and we can bounce forward. In spite of the devil's playbook and what he's planning. So what is resilience? What is resilience? The psychological definition of resilience is the capacity for us to adapt to all that I've spoken about, to the stressful circumstances, to bounce back. And I want to add, now we add another word. We not only bounce back, but we bounce forward from adversities, from adverse events. That resilience is a psychological quality and even the physical quality. We're going to talk about those different elements in a minute, that allows us to be knocked down. We might be knocked down, but we come back up. And the Bible calls that this, they just fall 7 times, but they rise each time. That is what is resilience, according to the Bible. And according to God, they just fall. They fall, but each time they bounce back. And in fact, in bouncing back, they bounce forward. So you don't stay where you were. And this is the joy of it. This is the joy of it, that what is happening to me is not actually creating the same status quo for me, but what is happening to me is creating a potential space for me to bounce forward. And it is a stepping stone to my greater person, to the person who I'm meant to be, to what God is wanting to do in my life. And that is why we can count it all joy all the time. All the time, that I will not only come back as strong as I was before, but I will come back and be stronger and move forward. That it is being able to spring back and to bounce forward. And that is what we want to do. We want to talk about how are we going to do that? How are we going to make use of the circumstances, take the lessons that we have learned from 2020, 2021, 2019, or whenever things have been happening in your life? Because I'm pretty certain of this, that in life, pain is inevitable. As somebody said, life is hard. And if you would understand that, life would become easy for you. If you'd understand that life is hard, life would become easy for you. And I often say to people, I wish children came with manuals when they came out of their mother's wombs. I wish they would say to them, if they could understand, okay, you're out now, right, great. You cried because you don't like being out in the atmosphere. It was nice and warm in there. But guess what? This is what's going to happen in your life. We say to them gently, they're children, so we may not be so shocking, but we would have a manual that would explain to them the state of the world. And in fact, somebody says it is important for us that we build resilient people. We build children who are resilient. We need to let them know. We need to know that let them know that life will hand them things, dynamite, landmines. They will step on them sometimes. So it's very important for us to do that. So what are the characteristics of people who are resilient? So first of all, that they have self-awareness, that they understand their strengths and their limits. It's important to understand that. We understand our strengths and our limits. So that will help us to know when I need to take time out to rest, because that's part of being resilient, knowing when I need to bounce back before I bounce forward, when I need to take a step back, like that elastic, I need to let it go at some point before it springs forward. I need to understand myself. I need to know where I've come from, to know what my strengths and what my coping skills are. I also have to have a plan for dealing with stress. Whatever that is, I need to have a plan for dealing with stress. Hopefully that is functional. Hopefully that is based and grounded on strong stuff. I need to know what to do when setbacks happen, when disappointments happen. Somebody said that we need to learn to discipline our disappointments. I need to know how to discipline my disappointments. I need to be able to recognize and express my needs. So people who are emotionally resilient, they're able to do this. They're able to focus not on the hurdle, on the mountain in front of them, but rather that how do I climb up the mountain? How do I get to the other side? Do I dig a tunnel? Do I go around it? Do I go up it? What is it that I'm going to do to get there? Because I'm focused on my goals. I'm focused on what I need to do. And what I need to do is I need to keep standing. Having done all to keep standing, stay standing. I need to be strong and immovable. So that is my goal. That is what God has said to me. So how do I keep doing that? So I need to understand how to do that. We're going to share a little bit on that, how to learn from my mistakes and criticism, learn when people tell me, give me feedback. I know that as a person who's going to move forward, I need to be able to take feedback, to be able to go forward. And I need to learn from my mistakes and not dwell in regret land, not dwell in shame, but move forward, because those things keep me bound where I am. I need to be able to see the larger perspective in challenging situations. So people who are resilient, they see that this is only part of a big picture and it's not everything. And finally, I call people who are resilient, they cultivate gratitude and humor in different situations. You know, being able to laugh at yourself, that is number one. Being able to laugh at your mistakes and see that I'm not perfect. Being able to laugh at yourself and also being able to just be thankful and grateful that God has done this and God has given me the strength to be able to make it. To be able to make it. So what makes the difference? What makes the difference between people who gave up and who say, I'm basically giving up. You know, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done. Those people who say, this is too much, I'm walking away. What is it that makes the difference between those people and those who will stay in the storm and who are going to make it, who rather than letting those difficulties draw them back, move forward? It is that they find a way to change course. They find a way to heal emotionally, and then they find a way to continue to move towards their goals. They find a way, instead of breaking, that they find a way to bend, but not let the storms break them. And we've seen examples of people. You see, I'm just going to give you one example that we're all familiar with. Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison, he came out. He did not come out bitter. And this is the interesting thing, because we can come out of 2021, we can come out of our loss, we can come out of the disappointments that we've had, the losses in relationships, the struggles that we've had because of the pandemic, because of everything else in life. And yes, we can come out, we'll be alive, but we are a shell. That's not what we want. People may see you and say, yes, she made it. And many of us may be saying that I made it through 2021, but inside you're broken. And inside is bitterness, inside is anger at someone, anger at God, anger at yourself. You're bitter at the way things have worked out and your disappointments. There's a difference. Because not only are we becoming resilient and staying strong, but we come out of it with sweetness, that the tree still is able, after the storm, to produce fruit. That we're still able to smile, that we're still able, yes, we've healed. It may take time. It may take time to heal. We talked about that. And you may need therapy. We talk about that too. But what will come out of you is not bitterness. Your resilience does not result in you becoming hard, but it results in you becoming able to be strong, but sweet, and not angry, and not bitter. And I think Nelson Mandela is a classic example, is a good example of that he was still able to forgive, that he survived those 27 years by staying focused on the day that, yes, it is a long walk to freedom. It is a long walk to freedom. I tried to read that book. It's a big book. And I must confess, I have not finished it. I said, okay, it's a long walk to freedom with this book. But I have that book in my shelf. But it is true. It is true that even if, no matter how long it takes for your stay in that storm, in that fire, it may be a long walk to freedom, but you will have the strength. You've learned, and you are learning how to stay in every stage of that long walk to freedom, and every step that you're going to have to take to that freedom, to the place. And finally, the long walk that we have as we sojourn on this earth, as we move towards our eternal home. It may be a long walk to eternal freedom, but it is a walk we can do as long as Christ is with us. It is a walk that we will be able to do. And so as we look at all these things, as we look at what is it that we would take, what does it take? What does it take as you look at your life, as you look at where you are now, as you look at what you're planning to do, how you've recovered from 2020 and how you want to recover? We want to know that physically resilience has something to do with physical, also, not just emotional. Our stamina, our physical health, our nutrition, our rest and recovery determines how resilient we are. We all know that if you haven't slept, you're not going to do very well in the rest of the day, right? We know that if we're not balanced nutritionally, if we're not eating, it's going to impact how we deal with life. We want to know that what it will take as well is being able to regulate our emotions, not to throw tantrums on the world, and not to throw tantrums around and not have that control. Being able to feel the pain, feel the fear, and yet being able to stay there and do what is necessary. That we know that resilience is also about our mental, our outlook that we have, the focus that we have, being able to think in a different way, the belief that we have, and that we know that we can make it. That's important. And then the spiritual aspect, that resilience has all those components, our physical, our emotional, our mental, and our spiritual. And we need to look after all those areas in order for us to be resilient. So somebody, and I'm just going to talk briefly about the 4 things that I picked from that resilience picture. So outlook, very, very important. How I see things is so important. Somebody said, in Zeno of Cyprus said, I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck. This sounds funny. He made a prosperous voyage when he suffered shipwreck. The Bible puts it this way: count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete and lack in nothing. That we know that we will grow from the situation. So when I look at what's happening around me and I look at what I understand, and I must believe that this is all working for my good. And as someone said, it cannot be told too often and repeated enough that it is not helps, but obstacles, not facilities, but difficulties that make men. It is not help, but obstacles. It is not facilities, but difficulties that make men, and that God knows this. So I count it joy. I count it joy. Someone said, you're unfortunate in my judgment if you have never been unfortunate. I know we don't like this. You are unfortunate if you have never been unfortunate. You have passed through life with no antagonist. If you have passed through life with no antagonist to face you, no one will know what you were capable of, not even yourself. So this is the outlook that I have. When something comes to me, I say, oh, God knew I could handle this, because he said it. He said it in his word. He says, I'll not give you more than you can handle. So even the things I suffered, oh Lord, I know that even the things that I suffered, the pain I suffered, the breakup I suffered, the sickness I suffered, somehow God is working it for my good. This is my outlook. And so I can smile. And so I can discipline the disappointment, and I can tell it that, hey, you want to disappoint me, but guess what? This is working. This is working for my good. It is making me who I am. So it is so important that we have the right outlook, that we are persistent, that we are persistent in our goals, that we know that we're going to make it, that we know that if we stay at it, like Thomas Edison, 10,000 attempts later, that I will make it. That even if I'm disappointed, even if I'm down, I'm not giving up. I'm not throwing in the towel. That I know that I will break through like that little flower, so tender, so gentle, so fragile, yet it makes it, that seed has power in it to make it through a concrete slab, and to make it like that little stream that runs down a mountain, hard crevices, and is able to dig and make it all the way down and towards the river to come down that mountain. That little stream never gives up. That little droplet never, ever, ever gives up. And this is what we are saying, that even if it's a Goliath that is in front of me, as Malcolm Gladwell said, it is not the size of the giant that determines the victory. It is not the person who's the highest person, the tallest person. It is not those with advantage that are going to make it. It is those who have understood that in life, it's the little things that make a difference. It is hope that makes a difference. It is our faith that makes a difference, that he has delivered us. I can say this, from a deadly peril, he will deliver us again. And then on him, we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us, that we have that hope, that we have that faith, that no matter what giant comes our way, whether it came last year, it's coming again, it's going to come. We know that he delivered us then, he's delivering us now, and he will deliver me in the future. It is hope. It is hope. So as we bounce forward, as we give our mind to what we're experiencing, as we look at what we're having to deal with on a day-to-day basis, that as we get stronger within ourselves, that we may come to disappointment land. I came there last week in February, early this year. I came to disappointment land. Things happened in my life that I was surprised that people let me down, that I thought would never let me down. But when we come to disappointment land, that it is important that we don't stay too long, that we have the right outlook, that we're persistent, that we have faith, that we have hope. But what we learn that we must learn to discipline our disappointment. That those things that happened to me years ago, and I used to spend 10 years dwelling, ruminating on them, worrying about them, crying about them, that I learned that some things I should just brush off my shoulder and keep moving. I should brush it off, because the devil will try and annoy you. Sometimes he just wants to annoy you because he knows that you cannot be stopped, that you cannot be delayed, that he wants to just try and annoy you because he can't find another way. And sometimes he'll bring little people, little things to try and annoy you. And you must know what to brush off. You must know what to focus on, so that you put your energies in the right place and you focus in the right way. So moving on, we want to acknowledge what has happened. We did that. We want to acknowledge the losses, the things, we accept that. And it's important, if you're going to move on, that you move on with that, not deny things. We talked on Monday about bereavement and the stages of loss and recovery. If you stay in denial land for long, you will stay there and not move on. So we want to accept and acknowledge the pain, what we have experienced, what is happening. But we want to express our needs and say, Lord, I thank you, but this hurts. This hurts, and acknowledge the pain, but refuse to stay there and ruminate. Ruminating is just chewing over things, talking when the enemy tries to remind you, move away from there. Focus on other things. Believe that there's more. The other day I was tempted to ruminate, and I was sitting there and I was praying, and God said and I said, hang on. If I do this, then I'm saying God is limited to my past, that God is limited to the things that he gave me, that he allowed me to have in the past. That's not true. But God says, eye has not seen, ear has not heard what God has in store for those he has prepared. So even if I lost this thing, even if this has gone out of my life, but God has more in store for me. But if I stay ruminating on this thing, then I'm limiting God, limiting my experiences to what has been, and I'm not believing that God has more in store for me. So I said, Lord, forgive me. Please, Lord, blow my mind. Show me. You can do anything. Show me what you did there, you can do even more. That's what he says. He says, I'll do miracles. So set your mind ahead. As Paul says, I look forward to what is ahead of me, and I keep focused on that. And last but not least, we gotta laugh. We have to laugh. I was going through this and I was looking at all these, jokes that people made about the year that was the worst of years and maybe the best of years. Charles Dickens says, it was the best of years. It was the worst of years. How can that be possible? How can it be possible? Because this is how it can be the best of years, because we can look at it and see what God has been doing. And we can look at it and see that, this is getting us closer to the second coming of Christ, that Jesus said it, that he said that in the times of the end, you will have trouble like no man has ever seen. So when they use that word, unprecedented, you can laugh and say, oh yeah, I know where that's come from. I know Jesus said it, that there will be unprecedented trouble. That word that was going around on media, unprecedented trouble, that they will be unprecedented trouble. You will forget what year it is. It will be just a year of trouble. We will not have a name for it. There is coming a time when we won't even know what year it is, what day it is, because you will be hiding. You will be in so much trouble that you won't even remember. You just remember where you are and right now. That it will be the year, it was the year. I'm just putting this there so you can see some of the things that we laughed about. Like 2020 was not a great year. Like 2020, if 2020 was a shirt, it would look like that. So terribly mismatched and mismade, right? This is how we felt, that if 2020 was a sign, we wouldn't know what the rest of the sign was. What was meant to be in my life in 2020? What could have been? None of us will ever know. None of us will ever know what the rest of our life was meant to be like after March 2020. We'll never know, right? And this is true, but we can keep calm and breathe. And this is important. We talk about emotional resilience, just being able to breathe and relax and control those painful thoughts and let God and surrender them to God. Think on what is good, whatsoever is lovely. Think on those things. Watching what we say to ourselves. I'm just going to go through this quickly now. That to be even-minded, someone said to be even-minded is the greatest virtue. To stay calm, to bear our misfortunes with a tranquil mind robs hardship of its strength and its weight. Because when we don't do that, we get all things happening in our bodies. We know that from stress, that we must speak that which we want, that we're not crushed, that we're not in despair, that we're not forsaken, that we're not destroyed. And as we speak those things, it causes us to grow and to be what we need to be, and to be resilient and to move forward. So, as someone said, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And when you think about yourself, when you look at your life, when you look at where you are, you think of how you are reacting to the things that are happening in your life right now. And you think of the dimensions of which we've spoken about. What is it that you're going to need to do in this day, tomorrow, in next week, in the next year, so that when all is said and done, you can stay standing? What is it amongst these things that you need to improve? Is it your faith in God? Is it your belief in His and the confidence that God can be trusted? Is it your ability to control your emotions and not let yourself go into negative places where you start to say things, oh, I can't make it, I'm not going to do it, this is too hard. When you start to say those things, you know you're destroying your foundations. Is it that you need to be physically exercising, eating better, sleeping better? So when the time of the storm finds you, you're able physically, because your body looks after your mind, that you will know that this is important for you. What is it that you're going to do? What is it that you're going to do? How are we going to help our children? This is important. That Frederick Douglass said it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. That what is it that I need to do for my family that is going to help them also to deal with the coming troubles that are going to come, that they stay standing no matter what and remain cedars of Lebanon and strong English oaks rather than be broken by what is coming. How can I help my family? What is going to be my new normal? So when we've listened to everything that I've said, and this is the end of our presentations this week, and I thought to myself, how is it that I'm going to finish this? There've been so many amazing presentations in the whole camp meeting and in all that we've been doing at Cornerstone this week. And God, I just said, Lord, I want to be able to do this because there are those who have experienced trauma, who have experienced trauma from childhood, who've had loss since they were on earth. There are those who have experienced awful toxic relationships. There are those who, as everybody suffered last year, suffered loss, maybe got sick. What is it that you want us to know? What is it that you want us to know? That how can we be standing? What is our new normal? That I wanted, and I wanted that God said to me, I want you. That this is your new normal, that when stuff happens, you can say, I was ready for this. I was prepared for this. As the picture said, when trouble comes your way, you say, I know I was ready for you because why? Because greater is He that is in me. But God has said that there's nothing you will not be, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine, that you're going to grow, that every challenge, every adversity that is with you, that it contains within you the seeds of opportunity and growth, and that you are going to make it, that you're going to make it. So are you ready for the new normal? Are you ready for the strong you? Are you ready for the strong Edith? Are you ready for the strong Tembi? Are you ready for the resilient? Are you ready for the resilient Krista? Are you ready for the resilient Rose? Are you ready for the new normal? Because this is your new you. This is that person who will stand, and having done all to stand, will keep standing. Because of everything you've learned, you're learning, whether you have to go for therapy, do it. but you are going to be ready. And when you are ready, and I'm going to finish by reading this. This is one of my favorite poems. It says, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank God for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of 2020, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years will finds me and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. William Ernest Henley said this. We are going to make it. And when we have a captain, he said, I am the master. But I want to say and suggest to you that you have a captain and a master of your sheep that has never suffered shipwreck. And that is Jesus. And he is in control, and he will always be in control. May God bless you. And as you continue on this journey, know this for sure, that God is with you, and you are ready for the new normal, because you have been given the power and the armor to make it through whatever is going to happen for the rest of your life. God bless you, and enjoy the rest of the camp for today and tomorrow. And we will see you next camp by God's grace, powerfully, strong, still standing, after having done all, still standing, no matter what 2021 has in store. God bless you.
Thank you, Edith, for that very inspiring, encouraging, and motivating presentation. Thank you to all our listeners and our viewers. Thank you to those who've been with us a whole week. I can see a number of our faithful listeners for the week. Thank you for being there. And I just pray that what you have learned here will be able to support you on this heavenward journey as you support others as well. If you have been triggered by any of our presentations or impacted in a way that is not comfortable for you, please do not struggle alone. Contact us at Cornerstone. Call our listening line every day from 8 a.m. to 12 midnight. You can speak to a trained counselor. The number is on the screen, or you can call our office line for appointments. What else can you do to support others? Please join our listening line. We would love to have more listeners. Or you can train as a mental health first aider. Be available for your church family and for your community as we try to build communities and making disciples. Thank you, everyone. We are now open for question time. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat or just raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Thank you.
Yeah, there's just lots of gratitude to the presentation that Edith has presented. People are just giving God thanks, lots of amens, lots of powerful. Others are saying, Lodi says to keep God thanks daily for every small things he does every blessed day. And yeah, so lots of thanks for the presentation.
Okay, there's a question around, is it possible for someone to be too strong and end up harming or hurting, harming instead of healing, moving forward, that it brings harm? Okay, I feel that that question is around, the first part, which we talked about. You have to accept and acknowledge what has happened. And when you acknowledge and accept what has happened, it allows you to begin that healing process and to also express that. And sometimes it means expressing it to God, could be expressing it to someone else, could be expressing it, but expressing it to yourself and acknowledging it. When we don't do that, and when we just say, well, I'm just going to be strong and just move on, but we refuse to recognize that what has happened actually is painful, then that is when it can be harmful to us. and where we don't actually heal, because we just what we're doing is covering up a wound and putting a case around it without actually acknowledging that even maybe it needs cleaning up a bit or whatever it is that needs to be done. So yes, you can be what we call artificially strong. So on the outside, but on the inside, you're still wounded, you're still healing, and that doesn't help you. And as you say, that sometimes people who are like that, they seem, what I've seen is when people have done that, even the world around them senses that hardness and that bitterness, and they may not understand, they may not see it, but in their interactions with other people, there is that bitterness and that hardness, and that's because inside they haven't healed, but they've created this wall around themselves to kind of protect themselves, and they may be fooling themselves, but they don't fool the world. And definitely God is not fooled as well. I don't know if anyone wants to answer that. Sister Mbi, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you've answered it well. Being strong does not mean suppressing your feelings. And as Edith said, you are actually destroying yourself. When we are saying we are strong emotionally, we are accepting what has happened to us. We are expressing it. We are telling our brain, if we are telling ourselves that, yes, this is disappointing, I am actually resilient by accepting that this is disappointing, and I'm expressing it, that gives me the ability to move on. As Edith said in a presentation, if you actually harbor your pain without acknowledging it, you become resentful, you continue to ruminate, you continue to hold grudges, you just become a bitter person. So when we express how we are feeling appropriately to the appropriate people, it helps us start the healing process.
Amen. 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 Actually, being vulnerable is being strong.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you allow yourself, you are able to be vulnerable, you are able to accept, to say, this is bad. You go through that process, then that's being strong.
Yes.
Would also like to acknowledge I Nyatanga from Zimbabwe, who is listening from Zimbabwe. Would like to acknowledge you. Thank you for joining us this morning.